Good morning. Can you start by telling me a little about yourself and your experience as an interpreter?
Good morning. Sure. I've been working as a professional interpreter for about 5 years, specializing in English and Spanish. I've interpreted in various settings, including medical appointments, legal proceedings, and business meetings. My focus is on providing accurate, culturally sensitive interpretation and ensuring clear communication between parties.
Great. How do you prepare before interpreting in a specialized field, like medical or legal?
Preparation is key. I always research the subject matter and relevant terminology beforehand. For medical appointments, for example, I review common procedures and terms that might come up. I also familiarize myself with the client's background and context to provide more accurate interpretation.
Can you describe a challenging situation you faced while interpreting and how you handled it?
Certainly. Once I was interpreting in a medical setting where the patient was extremely anxious and kept speaking rapidly. I calmly requested short pauses and repeated back key points to ensure clarity. By staying composed and patient, I was able to convey the information accurately without causing additional stress for the patient.
How do you handle confidentiality?
Confidentiality is a cornerstone of interpretation. I strictly adhere to professional standards and never share any information from my assignments. I also make sure to explain confidentiality guidelines to all parties if needed, especially in sensitive situations like healthcare or legal settings.
How do you deal with situations where you don't know a specific word or term?
If I encounter a term I'm unsure of, I'll try to infer its meaning from context without guessing inaccurately. If possible, I ask for clarification or use a neutral description. Accuracy is more important than speed, so I always prioritize conveying the intended meaning over providing a literal but possibly wrong translation.
Are you comfortable with both consecutive and simultaneous interpreting?
Yes, I have experience with both. I typically use consecutive interpreting in one-on-one or smaller meetings and simultaneous interpreting in conferences or larger events. I'm comfortable switching between modes, depending on the situation.
How do you handle cultural nuances in interpretation?
I pay close attention to cultural differences and adapt my interpretation to ensure the message is conveyed respectfully and appropriately. For example, certain phrases or gestures may not translate literally, so I find equivalent expressions that maintain the speaker's intent while being understandable to the audience.
Why do you want to work with our organization?
I admire your organization's commitment to bridging communication gaps and providing high-quality services. I'm passionate about helping people understand each other across languages and cultures, and I believe my skills align well with your mission and standards.
Imagine you're interpreting in a high-stakes legal case, and one party starts speaking very quickly and emotionally. How do you handle that?
In such situations, I remain calm and professional. I focus on breaking the speech into manageable segments, ensuring I capture the essential points accurately. If needed, I politely ask for short pauses or clarifications. The goal is to maintain accuracy without escalating tension.
How do you handle slang, idioms, or culturally specific references that don't have a direct translation?
I try to convey the intended meaning rather than a literal translation. For example, if someone says break a leg in English, I would translate it into an equivalent phrase in the target language that conveys good luck. I also sometimes provide brief explanations if the cultural reference is critical to understanding the message.
Have you ever had to interpret in a situation where the speakers disagreed or were hostile? How did you manage it?
Yes. In tense situations, I maintain neutrality and professionalism. I focus on accurately conveying each party's words without adding personal judgment or emotion. Sometimes, I also use calming verbal techniques, like softening repeated instructions, to help ensure clear communication.
What strategies do you use to maintain accuracy during simultaneous interpreting for long sessions?
I rely on active listening, note-taking, and mental chunking of information. I also pace myself and monitor for fatigue. If the session is long, I suggest brief breaks to the event organizer so I can maintain accuracy and focus throughout.
How do you handle ethical dilemmas, such as being asked to interpret something outside your language competency or expertise?
I always prioritize accuracy and professional ethics. If I'm not confident in my ability to interpret correctly, I politely inform the parties and suggest that a qualified interpreter be brought in. Interpreting beyond one's expertise can risk miscommunication, which I take very seriously.
Can you describe a time when you had to quickly adapt to a new subject area or terminology you hadn't encountered before?
Sure. I once had to interpret a meeting about environmental law with very technical terms I hadn't seen before. I quickly took notes, looked up key terms on the spot, and used descriptive translations for terms I wasn't certain about. The meeting went smoothly, and the client appreciated my adaptability.
How do you ensure you remain impartial and don't influence the conversation?
I strictly stick to interpreting exactly what is said without adding, omitting, or altering meaning. Even if I personally disagree with the statement, I convey it neutrally. Maintaining professional detachment is crucial to trust and accuracy.
Do you have experience with remote or video interpreting? How is it different from in-person?
Yes. Remote interpreting requires extra attention to audio clarity, camera angles, and timing, since nonverbal cues are harder to read. I also make sure to clarify any technical issues immediately and adjust my pace to account for potential delays.
How do you handle situations where the speaker uses highly technical jargon and you're unsure of the exact translation?
In that case, I first listen carefully to the context to infer meaning. If I'm unsure, I use a descriptive translation to convey the concept accurately. If possible, I may discreetly ask the speaker for clarification without disrupting the flow. Accuracy always comes first.
Have you ever faced a situation where someone asked you to omit or change information while interpreting? How did you respond?
Yes, I have. I politely refuse such requests, explaining that my role is to interpret everything accurately and impartially. Altering or omitting information violates professional ethics and can have serious consequences.
What would you do if two parties are speaking over each other rapidly in a heated discussion?
I maintain calm and neutrality, and I interpret one speaker at a time, asking for short pauses if necessary. My priority is to ensure that nothing is lost or misrepresented in the interpretation, even if it means slowing the conversation slightly.
How do you handle idiomatic expressions or humor that might not translate directly?
I try to convey the intended effect or meaning, rather than a literal word-for-word translation. For humor, I might adapt it to something culturally understandable in the target language. If it's essential, I provide a brief explanation to preserve the context.